Yeah.
Doing all right. How you doing?
I can't complain. Let's talk about your fun movie.
All right. Yeah.
Like, I think we're close in age. So, when in late 80s, 90s, when boosting was like a thing, talk a little bit about what made you say, let me take that and turn it upside down.
Well, I mean, I never knew it stopped being a thing, but yeah, it's I just think about how people interact with the world, and um, definitely dealt with boosters trying to, stay fly with no money. And I take different. I start with the character and think about what their world around them is like, and I often am thinking about how the larger world works in relationship to that. And so that's how I pick the world. And a lot of films have been talking about fashion and art, and I wanted to talk about it from a place that has to do with how a lot of average everyday people interact with that world. Is a world where the products cost way more than they can afford, and so it was an opportunity to talk about a lot of things. For instance, um, a lot of what there has been recent hype around and villainizing anyone that's involved in any kind of illegal business, as if that is as being the scapegoats for everything that's wrong with the world, right? And in reality, we know that some of that hype recently was uncovered by the Intercept investigative journalism site, as they uncovered documents that showed that police unions had hired publicists to inflate what was actually happening as a response to George Floyd and the protests that happened there. So anyway, we see these folks, we see these folks portrayed as, the problem with the world, as if exploitation and oppression and, all wars are not, right? So I wanted to talk about, this group of women who are actually serving a purpose in our communities, and who actually have something to do with what fashion is. So,
I think you hit on a couple of things. I mean, it's very hypocritical. On the one hand, you have fashion, who is, high-end fashion houses that are complaining that this is happening, right? But then on the same token, using slave labor to create a lot of this fashion, right? And
yeah.
marking it up to astronomical prices, or taking what these ladies are doing, right? Reimagining these looks, or co-opting their ideas. And then again, making it, some fashion magazine, some fashion editor says, like I think a couple years back, where in Tim's in the summertime, a model was doing it, and the girl's been doing that for a minute. And then, I think you hit on all of these things. Talk about how you selected your cast, because I feel like, Kiki, and especially like Taylor, who comes up with the the
Mhm.
rebranding and the naming.
Yeah.
We all know girls like I went to college with girls that were very much into thrifting and taking that, and then giving it like a little flair and all of that. Who are these women? Are these women that you know, or is this all coming from the imaginative brain that is yours?
Yeah, I mean, definitely grew up around all of that stuff, and when I'm writing the characters, they're an amalgamation of different women I know. And then only afterward, after I'm finished, am I starting to think about who can play the parts. And it's funny, because when I was thinking about it, I was a little bit worried, because there are a lot of uh, actors who kind of have like just a non-geographical accent and kind of have smoothed themselves out to where they can be acceptable in everything. And so I was like, damn, I'm gonna have to, you know, I made all these recordings of people from Oakland. Uh, and so when I met with Kiki, I was like, oh, this is what I have to play. This is, you know, what we talk like. She said, oh, so they talk like me. And she was right. That, you know, like she is, Kiki was a perfect role for that. And she has such a connection to, she observes so well and observes the humanity in people. I think that's one of the reasons she's probably the most loved person in the world right now, right? She observes people's humanity and she's able to reflect that and connect that to her own humanity and just be herself there. And there's so much of this that I wanted Kiki to do that I hadn't seen her be allowed to do in other films. It's usually like, you know, when you cast somebody, you're like, oh, this is what they're famous for. So you get them to do just that cadence over. And we with this, we were like, you know, just want to be up there close with her and just feel her.
I think you brought up something really like the code switching, right? Where we've been so trained, especially as Black people, like, okay, we gotta show up as our corporate self. And I love that in this movie where you allowed everybody like we just doing us, right? We're just with our crew. And talk about also the friendship, you know, yes, they're boosting, but this is bigger than that. This is a sisterhood, this is a group of women
Mhm.
that whereas it is about Kiki's character where she the lady ripped her off, but
Yeah,
at the same time what they may not always agree with everything, but in principle they're gonna ride with her because that's their girl, you know what I mean? So it is
exactly.
also a movie about women, Black women saying I got your back. Like I may not understand all of it, but if you tell me this lady did something to you, then she's enemy non grata to all of us, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of what comes forward in the movie is the bonding that the cast actually did with each other, right? And there's so much that is just in the acting that comes from them building this familiarity uh, with one another that you know just turns into, for lack of a better word, energy on screen that feels authentic, that feels real, and you know even in the pushing back and forth on each other and the coming together, it just was a real moment, right? So yeah.
You also have some real, like obviously you have Lakeith and Demi who are willing to take, it says a lot about them, take a smaller part, but they're like, I want to do this movie because of you. So how does that make you feel? Because I think, you're a filmmaker that colors outside the line and I think you don't get enough credit because I think we give a lot of credit for someone like Spike to be authentically New York, right? As you should be, and even more specifically Brooklyn, whereas you're like, okay, it's not different for you. You're like, I'm from Oakland and this is where I'm from and I want to rep my community and I want to tell stories about my community. Talk about staying, 10 toes down on that because I think that's important, to be able to say, this is who I am and colorful, all of it. It may not be your palette, but it is what it is. And I'm going to come through and I'm going to make art that speaks to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the only way to do it is to be uh, specific to, you know, this is what I know. This is what, you know, this is not only how I feel, but these are the details of the world that I know. The more specific you can be, the more universal it is, right? Because in the end, we're all, you know, going through much of the same stuff, you know. Uh, on Friday night at about 6 o'clock, wherever you are in the world, doesn't matter. People are calling each other up saying, "What's going on tonight?" Right? There, you know, that we all are going through breakups and all sorts of things. All of these things are universal, but the only way they really truly feel universal is if they come from a place. They come from a place experienced by a person, and that's when we feel that it's real, and then it becomes universal. Um, and so I think that's why Spike's stuff works. That's why Jim Jarmusch's stuff works. Um, it's so that's the grounded part. Obviously my stuff is very out there. It's very adventurous, and there's fantasy involved and absurdity, but those things are part of what keeps it grounded. It's also what keeps it grounded for the actors as well. The specificity allows it, and I couldn't do all of that stuff if I didn't have these amazing performances that had to do with it being grounded. So,
Let's talk fashion a little bit. You obviously are a fashionable guy. You're a man that's not afraid of color and
mhm.
print. So how much fun was it collaborating on these looks, where you can
Oh,
just be like, there's really no rule here. Like
uh,
you can be like, okay, I want to do purple and then put a dash of pink in there, and I want to do fur and
the only
I
rule
want
is
to do
it has to be
everything.
awesome. That's the only rule. It has to be awesome. And that's it. And our costume designer Shirley Carrata, she's amazing. And what I knew from her past work, so we did this on a small budget compared to there's other movies out right now that had a bigger budget than ours that do much less, right? And and everybody bent over backwards to make this happen. Uh, Now, and Shirley, what I knew of her past work is that she'll pick certain things to actually uh, design and build herself, right? But she won't try to. A lot of costume designers might have been like, "This is a fashion movie. I'm gonna get my fashion line out. I'm designing everything. We're building everything." And so she designed in the sense that she picked certain, like the turquoise dress and the plaid dress and certain things that we needed to build because there was no other way to have them. Um, but otherwise, she was like, "Oh, we need that stuff. I'm calling this designer up, getting it lent to us. I'm calling up SCAD and having their students use their projects to be in the movie, things like that." And she's just very resourceful, and puts the end goal at the top of the thing, not necessarily her ego. And it just makes and just our tastes really aligned. There was very few things like, we did a lot of talking about each scene, and she came like, okay, how about this for this scene? There's very few things that I was said no to. I can't remember one. I'm sure something existed, but usually it was more just like, let's not use that in this. Let's use that in that scene instead of this scene, something like that. But other than that, like we were just aligned. So
Absolutely. Well, listen, I think this is the joy we need right now. I love the fact that you're encouraging people to dress up to see it. And
yeah,
it's definitely, I had a good time seeing it. And I wish you the best of luck with this project and keep on disturbing the peace. We need that type of disturbance right